Tensions in the Persian Gulf have once again surged to the forefront of global attention, as Iran has announced the commencement of live-fire naval exercises in the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most strategically significant maritime choke points in the world. The announcement comes at a time when the United States has visibly increased its military presence in the region, deploying an aircraft carrier strike group, including the USS Abraham Lincoln, along with accompanying cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. The convergence of Iranian exercises and the American fleet S-positioning has reignited fears of a potential confrontation between two of the world's most capable naval powers, raising the stakes for both regional security and global energy markets. While the drills are officially framed by Tehran as routine training for its Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, naval units, the timing and scale of the exercises suggest a carefully calibrated message directed at both domestic and international audiences, signaling Iran's resolve to defend its maritime interests while simultaneously testing the operational readiness of its forces. Iran's naval strategy, particularly that of the IRGC, has long been shaped by asymmetric warfare principles. Unlike conventional navies that rely on large battleships and aircraft carriers, the Iranian approach emphasizes speed, agility, and the use of smaller vessels equipped with missiles, torpedoes, and swarm tactics designed to exploit vulnerabilities in larger, technologically advanced adversaries' formations. These live-fire exercises serve multiple purposes. They provide practical training for personnel, allow for the testing and refinement of new weapon systems, and act as a demonstration of Iran's ability to project power in a critical region of international maritime commerce. Analysts note that Iran has increasingly invested in fast attack craft, missile-equipped patrol boats, and unmanned aerial and surface systems that can overwhelm larger vessels, a strategy that is particularly effective in the confined waters of the Strait of Hormuz. The narrowness of the strait, combined with heavy commercial traffic, creates an environment where even limited Iranian action could disrupt the movement of oil and gas, underscoring the region's vulnerability to both intended and unintended escalation. The presence of the United States Navy, S Carrier Strike Group, adds a significant layer of complexity to the situation. Aircraft carriers are symbols of strategic reach and deterrence, and the deployment of the USS Abraham Lincoln in proximity to Iranian waters is a clear demonstration of American commitment to maintaining freedom of navigation in international waters. The Carrier Strike Group, supported by Aegis-equipped destroyers and cruisers, provides a formidable combination of air power, long-range missile defense, and intelligence capabilities. By positioning such assets in the region, the United States signals to Tehran that while it seeks to avoid conflict, it remains prepared to respond decisively to any aggression that threatens its forces or commercial shipping. The dynamic between Iran's asymmetric strategies and the United States' technological superiority forms the core of the current naval standoff, where both sides carefully weigh risks, optics, and strategic messaging. One of the critical dimensions of this standoff is the economic and geopolitical significance of the Strait of Hormuz. Approximately 20% of global oil shipments pass through the strait, making it a vital artery for energy security. Any disruption, whether through accidents, aggressive maneuvers, or deliberate blockades, could have immediate and far-reaching consequences for global energy markets. Historical precedents, including the tanker war during the Iran-Iraq conflict in the 1980s, illustrate how even limited maritime actions in this region can produce cascading economic effects. Oil prices are acutely sensitive to threats of supply disruption, and the mere perception of risk can lead to volatility that affects nations far removed from the Persian Gulf. For Iran, asserting influence in the strait is not just about national pride or regional strategy. It is a lever of economic and political power that can extend well beyond its borders. Iran's decision to conduct live-fire drills in the midst of an American naval presence also carries significant signaling value on the international stage. Domestically, these exercises reinforce the narrative of a strong and resilient military, capable of defending the nation against external threats. Iranian state media frequently frame such drills as demonstrations of technological advancement and readiness, cultivating a sense of national unity and legitimacy for the leadership. Internationally, the exercises serve as a reminder of Iran's ability to challenge or complicate foreign military operations in the region. By conducting the drills openly and with live ordnance, Tehran communicates a willingness to escalate if provoked, while simultaneously operating within the ambiguous gray zone of conventional conflict. This careful calibration allows Iran to assert deterrence without crossing the threshold into overt war, maintaining strategic leverage while avoiding catastrophic consequences. The U.S. response, while measured, has emphasized the importance of professional conduct and the avoidance of provocative actions. CENTCOM has publicly warned Iran that unsafe or reckless maneuvers near U.S. vessels will not be tolerated, stressing that freedom of navigation and the safety of international maritime traffic are paramount. The careful language reflects Washington's dual objectives: to deter Iranian aggression without inflaming tensions unnecessarily. In this context, both nations are engaging in a form of strategic signaling, where actions, timing, and communication are designed to convey capability, resolve, and restraint simultaneously. Naval analysts highlight that such signaling is particularly important in high-stakes regions like the Persian Gulf, where misinterpretation of intent can lead to rapid escalation. Technology and intelligence capabilities play an outsized role in the unfolding scenario. U.S. naval forces rely on advanced surveillance systems, electronic warfare, and satellite intelligence to monitor Iranian activity in real time. These capabilities provide situational awareness that is critical for anticipating potential threats, deconflicting maritime traffic, and planning defensive operations. Conversely, Iran has invested in coastal radar networks, anti-ship missile systems, and fast-attack naval craft that can exploit gaps in larger navies' defensive networks. The interaction between these technological assets creates a complex strategic environment where both sides continuously assess risk, readiness, and opportunity. Military planners from both nations understand that even minor miscalculations could trigger unintended escalation, adding to the intensity of operational planning during these exercises. Another key factor in this standoff is the broader geopolitical context. Iran's naval exercises occur against the backdrop of ongoing tensions over its nuclear program, regional influence, and relationships with allies and rivals in the Middle East. The presence of U.S. warships in the Gulf is part of a broader effort to reassure allies in the region, including Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the Gulf Cooperation Council states, that the United States remains committed to stability and the protection of commercial shipping lanes. These dynamics amplify the strategic implications of Iran's drills, as any incident could resonate well beyond the immediate theater, drawing in additional regional actors and international stakeholders. Analysts note that both Tehran and Washington are acutely aware of this, which shapes their decision-making and the cautious escalation of naval operations. Iran's choice of live-fire drills, as opposed to simulations or exercises without ordnance, also reflects a calculated effort to display operational competence. Live-fire exercises test personnel, weapon systems, and command structures under realistic conditions, providing invaluable training that cannot be replicated through simulations alone. Additionally, they serve as a public demonstration of deterrence capability. By conducting these exercises in waters that are highly visible and strategically significant, Iran emphasizes that its forces are prepared for potential confrontation, whilst also sending a subtle warning to the United States and other regional powers. Any attempt to constrain Iranian operations in its maritime backyard will be met with a credible and lethal response. Despite the rising tension, experts note that both sides are carefully managing the risk of miscalculation. Naval operations in congested waters require precise coordination and communication. Standard protocols for identifying and tracking vessels, maintaining safe distances, and deconflicting flight operations are rigorously observed to reduce the likelihood of accidents that could spiral into broader conflict. Both Iranian and U.S. commanders are highly experienced in operating under these conditions, and there is a mutual understanding that maintaining operational professionalism is essential to prevent incidents. In this sense, the exercises are as much about demonstrating discipline and control as they are about demonstrating firepower. The strategic implications of the current situation extend far beyond the immediate naval theater. Global markets, energy security, and regional alliances are all affected by the unfolding standoff. Oil prices can respond instantly to perceived risk, affecting economies around the world. Regional actors monitor these developments closely, adjusting their own security postures in response to perceived threats and reassessing the reliability of external guarantees. For the United States, the ability to project naval power in the Gulf serves as a tangible reminder of its global reach, while for Iran, these drills reinforce a narrative of resistance and sovereignty that is central to its strategic culture. The interplay of perception, capability, and signaling thus becomes as critical as any ordnance or vessel deployed. Finally, the ongoing exercises underscore a broader shift in modern naval strategy, particularly in contested regions like the Persian Gulf. Power is not simply measured by the size of fleets or the number of missiles. It is defined by the ability to shape adversaries' perceptions, manage risk, and operate effectively under complex political and operational constraints. Both Iran and the United States are engaging in a high-stakes form of strategic communication, where each maneuver, broadcasted statement, and exercise contributes to a larger narrative of deterrence, readiness, and influence. The delicate balance of assertiveness and restraint currently on display demonstrates that modern naval competition is as much about psychology, signaling, and credibility as it is about firepower and numbers. In conclusion, Iran's live-fire naval drills in the Strait of Hormuz, occurring as U.S. warships loom nearby, represent a multifaceted exercise in strategy, signaling, and deterrence. The situation is a textbook example of modern naval power dynamics. where asymmetric capabilities, strategic positioning, and psychological signaling intersect to create a tense but controlled standoff. Both nations are acutely aware of the potential consequences of escalation, and both are leveraging their respective strengths to send clear messages without crossing the threshold into open conflict. As the exercises continue, analysts and global observers will be watching closely, recognizing that the unfolding events are far more than a training exercise. They are a high-stakes demonstration of influence, resolve, and the complex interplay of power in one of the world's most sensitive maritime regions. As Iran's live-fire naval exercises continue in the Strait of Hormuz, the situation evolves far beyond a simple display of military capability. While Part 1 highlighted the operational and tactical dimensions, the second layer of this unfolding story lies in the strategic, economic, and psychological factors that make the drills a potent tool of influence, both regionally and globally. Understanding this broader context is crucial because it explains why Iran's actions, although framed as routine exercises, carry consequences that extend well beyond the Gulf and directly interact with U.S. military presence in ways that could redefine the balance of power. One of the most significant strategic elements is Iran's ability to project asymmetric power in the Persian Gulf. Unlike traditional naval conflicts where large fleets face off in open waters, Iran relies on speed, agility, and unconventional tactics designed to exploit narrow choke points. The Strait of Hormuz, at its narrowest, only about 21 miles wide, provides an ideal setting for this type of warfare. Iranian forces are capable of deploying fast attack craft, missile boats, and swarm tactics that could threaten even the most technologically advanced adversaries. These capabilities are complemented by sophisticated anti-ship missile systems, minefields, and coastal defense networks that can be activated quickly. By conducting live-fire drills in this region, Iran is not merely testing its readiness. It is signaling to the world, and particularly to the United States, that it possesses the operational knowledge and confidence to disrupt maritime traffic if its national interests are threatened. Economically, the Strait of Hormuz is of unparalleled importance. Nearly 1/5 of the world's oil shipments pass through this narrow passage, making it one of the most sensitive nodes in global energy logistics. Any disruption, even temporarily, can ripple through international markets. Iran understands this leverage intimately. By demonstrating its ability to affect shipping lanes, Tehran wields a form of economic influence that rivals military confrontation. Analysts highlight that during past crises, even minor disruptions or threats in the strait have caused significant spikes in oil prices, affecting economies far removed from the Gulf region. The live-fire drills, while not designed to physically impede shipping, serve as a potent reminder of this latent power. Iran's ability to shape global energy markets without engaging in full-scale conflict illustrates the modern principle that military capability is as much about perception and potential as it is about actual use of force. The presence of U.S. warships, particularly the aircraft carrier strike group led by the USS Abraham Lincoln, complicates Iran's calculations. From a purely tactical standpoint, an aircraft carrier strike group represents overwhelming conventional power. Its ability to project air power, command intelligence networks, and defend against missile attacks makes it a formidable presence. However, the Iranian strategy is designed to avoid direct confrontation with superior U.S. forces. Instead, Iran employs what military strategists call denial and attrition tactics, shaping the battlefield so that any aggressive action by the adversary becomes costly, uncertain, and risky. By conducting exercises under the watchful eye of U.S. naval assets, Iran demonstrates both restraint and capability. The message is deliberate. Iran can challenge U.S. forces indirectly and has the tools to defend its maritime interests, but it prefers to operate within a carefully controlled spectrum of conflict to avoid escalation. The geopolitical signaling of these exercises is equally crucial. Domestically, Iran's leadership leverages live fire drills to project strength and national cohesion. State media broadcasts emphasize the technological sophistication of the armed forces and the IRGC's operational competence, fostering a sense of security and pride among the population. Internationally, the exercises serve multiple purposes. They reassure allies and proxies in the region, signal to global markets that Iran remains a resilient actor, and subtly warn potential adversaries that provocative actions will be met with preparedness. This dual messaging, strength to domestic audiences, deterrence to international observers, underscores the multifaceted role of military exercises in modern strategy. Live fire drills in this context are not just training, but a carefully calibrated tool of influence. From a U.S. perspective, the exercises provide both a challenge and an opportunity. The presence of Iranian naval forces conducting live fire operations in proximity to American warships demands heightened vigilance, precise command and control, and constant intelligence monitoring. U.S. forces rely on advanced sensor networks, electronic warfare systems, and satellite reconnaissance to maintain situational awareness and mitigate the risk of accidental escalation. However, these operations also allow U.S. military planners to assess Iranian capabilities, tactics, and response patterns in real time. Every missile launch, every coordinated maneuver, and every radar activation provides valuable data that informs future operational planning and strengthens deterrence. By carefully observing without engaging, the U.S. reinforces the principle that restraint can coexist with strength. Even in high-stakes scenarios, the psychological dimension of the standoff cannot be overstated. Both sides are acutely aware that perception shapes behavior as much as actual capability. For Iran, demonstrating operational readiness without provoking a direct clash is a way to maintain credibility while managing risk. For the United States, projecting overwhelming capability while avoiding provocation ensures that deterrence remains credible without escalating tensions unnecessarily. This delicate balance requires careful communication, precise timing, and mutual understanding of thresholds. Misinterpretation of intent in such an environment could have catastrophic consequences, making psychological management as critical as military positioning. Technology plays a pivotal role in both actual operations and signaling. Iran's drills involve a combination of missile systems, radar networks, and fast attack craft integrated into coordinated operations. These systems are not only functional but symbolic. They communicate sophistication, preparedness, and the ability to defend strategic interests. On the U.S. side, carrier strike groups integrate advanced Aegis missile defense systems, electronic warfare capabilities, and networked command structures that can track, analyze, and respond to threats in real time. The interplay of these technological layers underscores a central tenet of modern naval strategy. Dominance is defined not solely by the number of ships, but by the ability to manage information, project influence, and shape adversary decision-making. The international dimension further complicates the scenario. Iran's naval exercises are closely watched by regional actors, including Gulf Cooperation Council members, Israel, and other maritime nations, all of whom have a vested interest in the security of shipping lanes. Simultaneously, allies of the United States observe the situation to gauge Washington's commitment and capability in maintaining freedom of navigation. Each maneuver by Iran and every positioning of U.S. forces generates ripples of diplomatic calculations, alliance considerations, and strategic signaling. In this sense, the drills are simultaneously a military operation, a diplomatic exercise, and a test of international perception management. The economic stakes, in particular, add a layer of indirect influence that rivals any kinetic operation. Threats to the Strait of Hormuz immediately influence global oil markets. Futures prices respond to even minor indications of instability, demonstrating the sensitivity of global supply chains to localized military events. For Iran, this economic leverage is a strategic tool. It allows the nation to assert influence globally without firing a single shot in anger. For the United States and its allies, monitoring and mitigating these risks requires constant coordination, intelligence sharing, and contingency planning. In effect, the Persian Gulf has become a theater where economic, military, and diplomatic instruments converge, creating a complex interplay of power that extends far beyond traditional definitions of conflict. The exercises also highlight the evolving nature of deterrence in the 21st century. Unlike past conflicts where deterrence relied on the threat of overwhelming force or the fear of nuclear escalation, modern deterrence increasingly depends on a combination of asymmetric capabilities, economic leverage, technological sophistication, and psychological signaling. Iran's ability to project risk in the Gulf, combined with the U.S. ability to respond decisively, if necessary, exemplifies this modern approach. Deterrence is no longer solely about preventing direct attacks. It is about shaping perceptions, creating uncertainty, and influencing decision-making in ways that reduce the likelihood of conflict while preserving strategic objectives. Importantly, both sides are operating under a framework of professional conduct and risk management. Live-fire exercises are inherently dangerous, and miscalculations could have severe consequences. Standard operating procedures, identification protocols, and communication channels are rigorously maintained to prevent accidental engagement. Military leaders on both sides are aware that errors could escalate rapidly, and both Tehran and Washington have a vested interest in avoiding missteps that could trigger broader hostilities. This awareness adds another dimension to the strategic calculus. The demonstration of capability must be carefully balanced against the imperative of control. In addition to the immediate operational and economic considerations, the ongoing exercises serve as a barometer of broader regional dynamics. Iran's position in the Middle East is shaped not only by its military capabilities, but also by its relationships with neighboring states, regional powers, and non-state actors. The live-fire drills reinforce Iran's role as a central actor in regional security calculations, signaling to allies and adversaries alike that it retains both the capacity and willingness to defend its interests. Simultaneously, the United States' naval presence demonstrates its continued commitment to regional stability, alliance obligations, and the protection of international maritime norms. The interaction of these dynamics highlights the multifaceted nature of modern naval competition, where military, economic, and political factors are deeply intertwined. Finally, the ongoing situation illustrates the subtle art of strategic messaging in contemporary geopolitics. Iran's drills are designed to be highly visible, sending signals of capability and resolve, but they are executed with restraint to avoid triggering direct conflict. U.S. forces, in turn, project overwhelming conventional superiority while emphasizing professionalism and the avoidance of escalation. Both actors are engaged in a form of strategic choreography, where each move is carefully calculated to influence the opponent's behavior, reassure allies, and maintain credibility in a complex and highly charged environment. This dance of deterrence demonstrates that modern conflict management often relies more on perception, communication, and signaling than on direct engagement. In conclusion, Iran's live-fire naval exercises in the Strait of Hormuz, occurring in the shadow of U.S. warships, represent more than routine training. They are a multidimensional display of strategic capability, economic influence, technological sophistication, and psychological signaling. The drills highlight the evolving nature of deterrence, where asymmetric tactics, careful messaging, and professional conduct converge to manage risk and influence behavior without escalating into open conflict. The Persian Gulf has once again become a focal point of global attention, illustrating that modern naval power is defined not only by the weapons and ships on display, but also by the ability to shape perceptions, manage uncertainty, and exercise influence in a high-stakes, interconnected world. As the live-fire naval exercises conducted by Iran continue to unfold, a deeper understanding emerges of the military, psychological, and operational factors that define the standoff between Tehran and Washington. While the first two parts of this series examined the tactical maneuvers, strategic signaling, and economic leverage, Part 3 delves into the subtler dimensions of modern deterrence, those elements that are less visible yet profoundly influential in shaping decision-making, crisis management, and the perception of power on both sides. These elements are critical because, in the Persian Gulf, miscalculation is not only possible, but potentially catastrophic, and understanding the human, technological, and strategic factors at play illuminates why both Iran and the United States continue to exercise caution despite rising tensions. One of the most important aspects of this standoff is the psychological dimension of deterrence. Deterrence in the 21st century is no longer simply about the capacity to destroy an opponent's forces or infrastructure. It is increasingly about shaping perceptions, creating uncertainty, and influencing the calculations of decision-makers. By conducting high-profile drills in the Strait of Hormuz, Tehran signals to both domestic and international audiences that it possesses operational competence, advanced capabilities, and the resolve to defend its national interests. At the same time, the drills are carefully calibrated to avoid direct confrontation with superior U.S. forces, creating an environment in which potential aggressors must weigh the risks of escalation against the rewards of action. The psychological effect is to foster caution, not fear. From the American perspective, the psychological element operates in parallel. The presence of a U.S. carrier strike group, including the USS Abraham Lincoln, along with supporting cruisers, destroyers, and logistical vessels, is as much a tool of perception as it is a tactical capability. These forces demonstrate that the United States can project power globally and respond decisively if necessary, but they do so in a manner that avoids unnecessary provocation. The careful positioning of warships, the disciplined execution of exercises, and the public communication of rules of engagement all serve to reinforce a narrative of strength tempered by restraint. In other words, the U.S. is signaling that, while it is capable of overwhelming force, reducing the probability of miscalculation while maintaining credibility in the eyes of both Tehran and the international community. Operationally, the Persian Gulf presents unique challenges that amplify the importance of perception and decision-making. The Strait of Hormuz is narrow, congested with commercial shipping, and highly sensitive to even minor disruptions. In such an environment, the risk of accidental collisions, misfires, or misinterpretation of maneuvers is elevated. Both Iranian and U.S. naval commanders must operate with extreme precision. The margin for error is small, and the consequences of mistakes are large. For instance, even a minor misjudgment during a missile launch exercise or a close-quarters maneuver could escalate rapidly, drawing in additional forces and triggering political crises. These operational realities reinforce the psychological dimension of deterrence. When decision-makers recognize the complexity and risk inherent in each action, restraint becomes the rational choice. Iran's asymmetric naval doctrine further intensifies this dynamic. Rather than relying on large conventional surface combatants, the IRGC emphasizes small, fast attack craft, missile-equipped boats, and swarm tactics. These vessels can operate in close coordination using speed, maneuverability, and surprise to challenge larger, technologically superior adversaries. The live-fire drills serve to validate these tactics in realistic conditions, allowing commanders to refine operational procedures, assess response times, and integrate new technologies such as unmanned systems. The presence of U.S. forces complicates these exercises, but also provides an opportunity to test the robustness of Iranian doctrines under scrutiny. This dual-purpose nature of the drills, training, and signaling demonstrates how modern military operations serve multiple strategic functions simultaneously. Technology plays an outsized role in shaping perceptions and influencing decision-making. Iran's integrated radar networks, coastal missile batteries, and command and control systems are critical to the execution of its live-fire exercises. These systems enable rapid detection, targeting, and engagement of potential threats, creating an impression of readiness and lethality that extends beyond the physical assets deployed. On the American side, carrier strike groups leverage advanced surveillance, electronic warfare, and intelligence networks to maintain situational awareness. The constant monitoring of Iranian activities, combined with the ability to respond swiftly to threats, reinforces the perception that the United States can manage risk while maintaining the upper hand. In this interplay of technology and perception, credibility becomes a strategic asset as important as any missile or vessel. The United Arab Emirates and Israel, as well as by major international stakeholders, including China and European nations. The demonstration of military capability, coupled with careful restraint, reassures allies of Iran's strategic competence, while also communicating a form of deterrence to potential adversaries. Similarly, the U.S. presence in the region reinforces alliance commitments and assures partner nations that freedom of navigation and the security of commercial shipping will be maintained. This multi-layered signaling across domestic, regional, and global audiences illustrates the complexity of modern deterrence, where actions are interpreted in multiple contexts, and misinterpretation carries significant risks. The human element of decision-making is equally critical. Both Iranian and American leaders operate under domestic political pressures, international scrutiny, and institutional constraints. In Tehran, the leadership must balance nationalist expectations with the practical realities of sustaining economic growth, technological development, and political stability. Aggressive action in the Strait of Hormuz could satisfy domestic calls for strength, but risk triggering economic sanctions, military losses, or regional isolation. In Washington, political leaders must balance commitments to allies, the protection of commercial shipping, and the credibility of U.S. deterrence without unnecessarily escalating tensions. These human factors shape the calculus of risk, emphasizing caution and measured responses as rational strategies in a high-stakes environment. Economic leverage further reinforces psychological and operational deterrence. The Strait of Hormuz is vital to global energy markets, and Iran's ability to threaten disruptions, even symbolically, creates economic consequences that extend far beyond the Gulf. Oil prices respond immediately to the perception of risk, and markets remain sensitive to the smallest indicators of instability. This economic dimension adds another layer to the deterrence calculus. Iran can project influence without firing a shot, while the United States and its allies must manage not only military risks, but also potential economic fallout. In effect, modern deterrence is multidimensional, combining kinetic potential, psychological influence, and economic signaling into a cohesive strategic posture. Communication and signaling are essential to maintaining stability. Both nations use public statements, media coverage, and observed behavior to communicate intent and capability. Iranian state media highlights the sophistication and readiness of its forces, reinforcing domestic confidence and international awareness. U.S. Central Command issues measured warnings about unsafe maneuvers, signaling both vigilance and restraint. The careful calibration of these messages ensures that both sides understand the boundaries of acceptable behavior, reducing the likelihood of unintended escalation while maintaining strategic credibility. In this environment, perception management becomes as critical as any tactical maneuver, shaping decisions in real time. The integration of multiple dimensions, military capability, technology, psychology, economics, and communication, illustrates the sophistication of modern deterrence. Neither Iran nor the United States seeks direct confrontation, yet both are acutely aware of the consequences of inaction or misjudgment. Each maneuver, each missile launch, and each public statement contributes to a larger strategic narrative, influencing adversary calculations, assuring allies, and reinforcing deterrence. The Strait of Hormuz becomes not merely a geographic location, but a stage for the performance of strategic competence, where perception and reality intertwine. Regional dynamics add further complexity. Iran's naval exercises occur alongside ongoing tensions over nuclear development, sanctions, and proxy conflicts throughout the Middle East. The presence of U.S. forces reassures regional allies, but also introduces the risk of misinterpretation or accidental escalation. Both sides operate in a delicate equilibrium, where operational readiness, signaling, and communication are critical to preventing crisis. Military exercises in this context are not isolated events. They are embedded within a web of strategic considerations that extend across time, geography, and political domains. Finally, these exercises highlight the evolving nature of maritime strategy in the modern era. Power is no longer solely measured by the size of fleets or the number of deployed weapons. It is increasingly defined by the ability to influence perception, manage risk, and operate effectively within a highly interconnected global environment. Iran's live-fire drills, conducted under the watchful eye of U.S. forces, demonstrate how operational competence, psychological signaling, and strategic communication converge to shape the behavior of both allies and adversaries. Deterrence is achieved not through confrontation alone, but through the careful orchestration of multiple levers of influence. In conclusion, the ongoing live-fire naval exercises by Iran in the Strait of Hormuz exemplify the complexity of modern deterrence and the multifaceted interplay of military, psychological, and operational factors. The drills reinforce Iran's asymmetric capabilities, test operational readiness, and communicate both domestically and internationally, all while avoiding direct confrontation with U.S. forces. Simultaneously, the United States projects power, maintains situational awareness, and reassures allies through disciplined professional operations. The resulting standoff illustrates that modern naval strategy is not merely about physical force. It is about shaping perceptions, influencing decision-making, and managing risk across multiple dimensions. In the Persian Gulf, the most critical battles are often those that are never fought, and the ongoing exercises underscore how influence, restraint, and strategic foresight can prevent escalation even in one of the world's most sensitive maritime regions. As Iran's live-fire naval exercises continue in the Strait of Hormuz, the unfolding scenario highlights not only the immediate tactical and operational dimensions, but also the broader strategic, geopolitical, and global implications. In the preceding parts of this series, we examined the drill's tactical execution, Iran's asymmetric naval strategies, the U.S. response, and the economic and psychological dimensions of the standoff. In this final part, the focus shifts to the long-term consequences of this tense situation, the lessons it offers for modern deterrence, and the implications for the regional and global order. By analyzing these factors together, it becomes clear that the standoff represents more than a temporary display of military capability. It is a demonstration of how careful signaling, restraint, and strategic calculation can prevent escalation even in the most volatile environments. One of the most significant implications of these exercises is the demonstration of asymmetric deterrence in practice. Iran, recognizing that it cannot match the U.S. Navy in conventional firepower, leverages geographic advantages, tactical innovation, and operational agility to influence adversary behavior. Fast attack craft, missile-equipped patrol boats, coastal missile batteries, and swarming tactics allow Tehran to project credible risk to passing vessels, including U.S. warships, without engaging in full-scale conflict. These asymmetric capabilities are multiplied by the unique characteristics of the Strait of Hormuz. Its narrow channels and high commercial traffic density create a situation in which even limited Iranian action can pose significant challenges to U.S. operational planning. By conducting live-fire drills under the scrutiny of the U.S. Navy, Iran demonstrates operational competence, reinforces deterrence, and communicates that any aggressive moves against its maritime interests would be met with credible resistance. From the U.S. perspective, this standoff emphasizes the value of layered deterrence that combines military presence, technological superiority, and strategic signaling. The deployment of the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, along with supporting destroyers, cruisers, and logistical vessels, projects power while avoiding unnecessary provocation. Advanced surveillance, electronic warfare capabilities, and real-time intelligence enable the U.S. to monitor Iranian activity closely, anticipate potential threats, and deconflict operations in congested waters. By maintaining disciplined and professional conduct, the U.S. demonstrates that deterrence is effective not only through the threat of force, but also through operational competence, situational awareness, and the management of risk. This multidimensional approach ensures that the United States can protect its interests, reassure allies, and influence Iranian decision-making without triggering conflict. The exercises also illustrate the complex interplay between military actions and economic influence. The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the most critical arteries for global energy supply, with roughly 20% of the world's oil transiting through its waters. Even the perception of instability in the region can cause oil prices to spike, influencing economies worldwide. Iran understands that its geographic position and asymmetric naval capabilities provide a form of economic leverage that rivals the impact of kinetic operations. By signaling the ability to affect global energy flows, Tehran can influence international behavior without firing a shot, demonstrating a sophisticated form of deterrence in which economics, perception, and military capability are intertwined. Psychological and informational dimensions further shape this standoff. Both Iran and the United States are deeply aware that perception influences decision-making as much as actual military power. Iranian drills broadcast strength to domestic audiences and signal operational competence to external observers, reinforcing credibility. The United States, through disciplined monitoring, public statements, and precise maneuvers, conveys that it is prepared to respond decisively to any threat while minimizing risk. These psychological dynamics are critical in a high-stakes environment, where misperception could quickly escalate into conflict. By managing these perceptions carefully, both nations reduce the likelihood of miscalculation while maintaining the ability to influence the other side's decisions. Alliances and regional dynamics add additional layers of complexity. U.S. allies in the Gulf, such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, are closely monitoring both the drills and Washington's responses, interpreting actions as signals of commitment and reliability. Regional rivals and partners alike assess Iranian behavior as a measure of its strength, resilience, and willingness to assert its interests. The exercises, therefore, serve not only as a demonstration of capability, but also as a strategic message to multiple audiences simultaneously, shaping behavior, reassuring allies, and deterring potential adversaries. Similarly, U.S. presence in the region communicates steadfastness and reinforces alliances, contributing to stability through credible deterrence rather than direct confrontation. The standoff also provides lessons about the evolving nature of modern naval strategy. In the past, naval power was often defined by the size of fleets, the number of weapons, or the presence of large combatants. Today, effectiveness is determined by a combination of technological sophistication, operational flexibility, strategic signaling, and psychological influence. Iran's ability to influence adversary behavior through asymmetric capabilities, coupled with careful communication and operational restraint, exemplifies this evolution. The United States, by contrast, demonstrates that conventional superiority can be complemented by precision, restraint, and the management of perception to maintain strategic advantage without escalation. Modern naval competition, therefore, is as much about influence and signaling as it is about firepower. The risk of miscalculation remains a persistent concern. Both Iran and the United States operate in an environment of high tension, congested waters, and complex political and operational pressures. Even minor errors, such as a misinterpreted maneuver or an unintentional missile launch, could escalate rapidly. This risk underscores the importance of discipline, protocols, and professional conduct. Live-fire exercises, while showcasing capability, must be carefully executed to prevent accidents, emphasizing that operational competence is inseparable from strategic deterrence in a high-risk environment. The successful management of these exercises demonstrates that modern deterrence relies as much on control and professionalism as on strength. Technology continues to amplify both risk and capability. Iran's integrated radar networks, coastal missile systems, and fast attack craft enhance its ability to project influence in the Strait, while the U.S. relies on advanced sensors, real-time intelligence, and networked command structures to maintain situational awareness. This interplay creates a dynamic where capability is closely tied to perception. The actual threat is less important than the belief in that threat. Deterrence, therefore, is a psychological construct as much as a military one, relying on the adversary's understanding of operational competence, readiness, and resolve. The Strait of Hormuz becomes a crucible for these concepts, where perception management is as essential as actual firepower. Globally, the standoff demonstrates the interconnection of local actions and international consequences. Any disruption, whether real or perceived, in the Strait of Hormuz reverberates across markets, alliances, and geopolitical calculations. Global actors, including China, Europe, and other energy-dependent nations, watch closely, adjusting policies and responses based on Iranian and American behavior. This underscores the multidimensional nature of modern deterrence. It is not limited to kinetic action, but includes economic, diplomatic, and informational instruments that collectively shape behavior and maintain stability.